let's talk about Microsoft. So Microsoft has gained a little bit of hope since the release of the Series X and S consoles in 2020, with console sales outpacing Xbox 360 in the same amount of time, but selling worse than Xbox One. So like during the same amount of time these consoles have been released, it sold better than the 360, but it sold worse than the Xbox One. So that kind of tells you also like back in the day, like why people were so like hammering down on Xbox, when in reality, the Xbox One was selling better than the 360 did during the same amount of time. And the 360 didn't have a PS3 to fight against. So it's like Xbox One sold better in general, but the Series X is kind of falling behind here. So it's kind of ebbs and flows, as you can see.
Mm-hmm.
So Microsoft resorted to... let's see, where am I here? Okay, Microsoft resorted to going to the service route in 2017 with Xbox Game Pass, a Netflix-like subscription for games, Xbox games, with day one release of their first-party games on the service, as well as many other titles as an option. In addition to giving the option for gamers to stream games to devices like Xbox consoles, PC, and mobile, Xbox Game Pass has successfully was successful starting out. But Microsoft has had numbers start to flatline with the money they are investing into developing their first-party portfolio. So they're flatlining right now, and with the money they're putting into like the new current like games, such as the games like Avowed from Obsidian Games, Hellblade, which is coming out this spring, and Indiana Jones in the fall. Like that's a lot of money and a lot of projects they got going on, as well as what's happening in the future. And they're releasing them day one on Xbox Game Pass, a subscription service that's $16 a month. How are they making any money when in reality, most of the money from a game, when it has the potential to be profitable, is in the first few months of release. So with this strategy, Xbox has made a really cool like leg up against Sony, but in reality, as it's kind of like ironing out, where's the money going, and like how are they making return? How are they doing ROI, David? How are they getting return on investment? Like that's where I'm coming into question here. And a lot of pundits as well. I wouldn't call myself a pundit. I would call myself a retard. But anyway, if you're releasing a first party title on the subscription service, how can it be called profitable? But, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see what happens next. But anyway, Microsoft has made many acquisitions for the Xbox brand as well in the last few years. But the most recent purchase was Activision Blizzard King. The biggin. The tale of how Xbox purchased the company for nearly $75 billion with a capital B, which is the biggest entertainment purchase known to man at this point, is a whole story in itself that I won't go into here. But with this purchase, it's let Xbox gain access to studios responsible for games such as Call of Duty, Overwatch, Diablo, and properties like Crash Bandicoot, along with a ton of others as well that I won't get into here. But what is worth mentioning, though, is the fact that Microsoft has gained a lot in their purchase, but they are coming to the point where the ROI for this purchase, along with what we've already established with Game Pass, the ROI is not going to see the light of day for many, many, many years to come. And Microsoft obviously took this all into account, but it's like getting to the point where I can imagine they're getting desperate. And it's kind of been confirmed which is leading them to explore more unconventional ways of releasing their products, like releasing them on other platforms outside of the Xbox ecosystem, which is unheard of now. Well, not heard of now, but it's been unheard of since. So let me explain. It is speculated this is the reason why Microsoft is releasing games like Sea of Thieves, Grounded, Pentiment, and Hi-Fi Rush on PlayStation and Switch, in addition to Steam. They state that they are just releasing these 4 games, but it doesn't take much imagination that Xbox will have more drastic measures to get more people to buy their games, since they have, in a way, trained their customers to not purchase any of their titles, but instead sign up for Game Pass. One more thing on Xbox, and then we can iron this out. The future of Xbox's hardware is a speculation war right now, but it looks like they will be releasing a console refresh this fall in 2024, but having very little hardware change. We won't see anything like the transition from Xbox One to Xbox One X, but more like 360 to 360 Slim. So just a different look and maybe a little bit ironing out of some hardware stuff. An additional note is that this refresh is to have no disk drive this fall, with them going the adorably digital route. Another thing worth noting is that it is reported that Microsoft has the next console in the pipeline, and it might release sooner than expected, with 2026 being the year Microsoft is aiming for, with additional rumors flying around that they are investing resources into creating an Xbox portable console, not unlike the Steam Deck, which would be released in the next few years. What are your thoughts on this, David? Go whatever direction you want.
That would be highly intriguing. An Xbox Steam Deck, essentially, because I haven't messed around with the Steam Deck a whole lot. I've kind of stayed away from it. But it's a great idea, but it seems like the execution needs to be tightened up from what I can see on it. There's some it's more like a PC than it is like a console. You know, a lot of the work to get it running smoothly kind of falls on the consumer. So I could see if Microsoft could release something similar, but that had that plug and play console appeal, but with the ability for you to just bring in all your Xbox games of old and have them kind of migrate to one place. I think they could make a big impact on the industry doing that. But I mean, it remains to be seen whether they're going to do anything like that.
Yeah. Well, in the current market, I think it's interesting with handhelds right now because, yeah, you have the Steam Deck. You also have companies like Asus releasing the ROG Ally, which is like a Steam Deck, but just with Windows on it. And it's a bit more powerful, but it's also got Windows on it. And Windows is not made to be like a touchscreen interface, like at all.
No.
And so that's kind of a Achilles heel in that market right now. There are solutions in that specific device, like making a UI for it, but it's like you still have to go into Windows for a lot of things. Steam Deck, you don't really have to go outside of like the Steam ecosystem in terms of like going to the desktop or anything, unless you really want to get, nitty gritty with it. But if you just want to like download games, it's pretty nice, good experience. But again, like you said, not everything is like optimized for it. There are many things that won't run on it at all, such as Call of Duty, for example. Like the entire situation with that is borked. You also have just other manufacturers making similar stuff as well. And with the release of the Switch 2 coming out in 2025, which is definitely going to be before the next Steam Deck, because Valve has actually clarified they're not going to make another Steam Deck until, like, in their words, we're 2 years away, which was last year. So 2025 or 6 is when we're probably going to see the next Steam Deck. Well, probably 26. But with Xbox trying to get into that market too, I think it's becoming more of the idea, David, that it's becoming about meeting people where they are at. Like the Steam Deck has its own use, and not everybody will use it in the way it's made for, but it can get more people into gaming or to buy games and stuff like that. And that's what I think Xbox is banking on, as well as just spreading themselves as many places as possible, as many screens as possible, to just get people to buy their stuff. So I think it's just fascinating to see Xbox go this route, as well as releasing games outside of the ecosystem. Like you have Hi-Fi Rush, which was a pretty wonderful title release last year. I played a little bit of it, and like they have games like that, and Sea of Thieves coming to PlayStation. That's kind of crazy. And and I can imagine there's going to be more, man. Like I would love for the Master Chief Collection to come on PS5. That just opens up to way more people. These are also classic games. This is history. So like, I think in that aspect is cool, but also like I have friends that only have a PS5, like that live far away. And I would love for them to have MCC on their PS5 so I could play with them. But I don't know. What do you think of that? What do you think of Xbox going through and releasing their catalogs in somewhere else?
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a gamble, because on one hand, more systems that your games are available on means more money.
Moolah.
But on the other hand, you have the potential of diluting your brand.
Yep.
You also have the potential of becoming sort of irrelevant in the industry, as Sega did. Because Sega was a force to be reckoned with in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
And
they did what Nintendo don't.
And I mean, like...
They also did what Nintendo don't and went out of the market.
Yeah. And I mean, at the time, it probably, the idea that, you could see iconic Sega characters like Sonic the Hedgehog appearing on Nintendo systems would have probably been pretty cool, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that came a little too late with Smash Bros. But back in the 90s, that would have been a mind-blowing thing.
Yeah.
But you see how easily all of Sega's cultural clout came to naught, and as iconic as Sonic was, he's really not that relevant anymore.
No.
And so, yeah.
Sorry, Sonic fans. He's not that relevant anymore, guys. You creeps.
Not to say that there are people who, don't enjoy Sonic games anymore.
No, they're all creeps, David.
But let's be honest. Mario has remained consistently relevant.
Yeah.
Sonic has not.
Well,
so it's... I don't say this to insult Sonic.
I do.
I mean, I love ripping on Sonic as much as the next guy, but in this specific instance, I'm not trying to rip on Sonic.
You want to get those votes from the Sonic fans, David.
Vote for me.
Vote for me.
Whatever. I'm not sure yet. I'll tell you later. But what I want to say is,
oh man,
it's kind of easy come, easy go sort of thing,
Yeah.
So sure, Microsoft has Halo. Microsoft has the iconic Master Chief, and the idea is like, I can play Halo on the PlayStation. Oh my God, kind of a thing. But
oh my God,
but I could easily see a future where Microsoft and its once iconic game franchises are no longer relevant to the industry.
Yeah, I think they're getting to the point where they are tiptoeing into that direction. Like they are just about to cross that line. They had a whole, I remember online earlier this year when it happened where the rumors are like, oh my God, they're going to release Xbox games on Switch and PlayStation. And the whole internet was freaking out and having a spaz attack because of these rumors. That wasn't real. We didn't know what was going to happen at this point. It prompted Microsoft to make like a really weird, they called it a podcast, like where they sat down for like 30 minutes and were interviewed by some rep at Microsoft of their marketing team and talked about the future of the brand. And it was so like such a non-committal, non-answer kind of thing. They did say like, we're looking toward the future and maybe adding more games to this list of releases. And I'm like, okay, but you're not like saying what those are. And they also said, we were not going to also announce any of these games here on this podcast. We're going to let the studios handle it in their time. And it was like, they've done just a terrible job at communicating their strategies to the fans. And that where the point it's like, they're getting so bad at it that it's like, we don't know if they like are going to eventually go third party. We don't know if they're going to like make more Xboxes, which they probably are, but it's like getting to that point where the communication's poor, really terrible. And they just need to work on that and keep working on it because like we might get a handheld Xbox thing, which would be awesome, I guess. I don't know if I would buy it, but it would then bring, it would have that role. They would also, they have streaming. They have a lot of different options they can do. But once that genie, David, is out of the bottle of releasing on different platforms, especially like once Halo's done out there, which I don't necessarily think will happen soonish, but I could see in the future happening. Once that genie's out, it's out and it's no going back in. They can still make consoles, they can still make hardware, but it's like they're kind of diminishing their whole role in all of this, which in the end might make them more money, which is what they need right now. Who knows? But yeah, also Activision Blizzard, man, $75 billion. God, the whole company, I think at the time was valued at 160 to 180 billion. That's nearly half of their value that they bet on that. That's crazy.
What's interesting to me is like how It's just like you would think like the whole Activision Blizzard merger in the first place was a super huge deal.
Huge.
And now Microsoft has acquired them.
Yeah.
It's like, how is that not triggering some sort of antitrust investigation?
Okay, so so this whole process is basically like a whole book could be written on it, David, because it lasted like 2 years of them trying to buy this company. And I remember I followed it through the last 2 or 3 years of them like wanting to purchase Activision Blizzard. And basically it came down to the arguments that Sony and other companies made, and the FCC as well made against Xbox, never really held up in any court. And the judges sided with Xbox in the end. There were many, many times where we're like, wow, this is not going to go through. This is not going to happen because of anti-consumerism or stuff. But let me tell you also something else, David. Tencent was also in line to purchase Activision Blizzard. Do you know what Tencent is, David?
I've heard the name.
So they are a conglomerate, they're a company, an entertainment company that has a lot of capital, but most of that capital is from the Chinese government. And they are a Chinese corporation. And they have so many fingers and so many different bowls in the industry. They have a minority stake in nearly every AAA company right now. They were going to purchase ABK, but when the dealings were happening and Bobby Kotick, the CEO of Activision Blizzard, was doing all this, it seems like Xbox would have been a more attractive purchaser versus Tencent, because the U.S. government definitely didn't want anything China-related getting into spending this kind of money on American like corporation. So you have that aspect, but you also have the thing of like Microsoft owns like the biggest AAA publisher as well. So, and they're also a publisher, so it's like that's kind of weird as well. They've done everything they can to making like they have 10-year deals with Sony, PlayStation, even Valve, saying we're going to bring Call of Duty to your services or platforms. But that's just 10 years. I mean, who knows what they're going to do down the line?
I mean, at this point, the way we see things going, I mean, in 10 years, is Call of Duty even going to be relevant anymore?
Exactly. Like there could be something else that comes out. You never know. And like the industry is like so volatile in that aspect that these companies are just really trying to hanker down and betting on what is successful. But Call of Duty is just being run into the ground, and it has been for the last decade. So we'll see if it even goes. But people still love it. People still like it. But we'll see in 10 years.